Some viewers may find this content disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Who dares awaken me from my slumber? A dirty birdie, Kelly, what's good, my friend? This is excellent to see you popping into the Fox Den tonight. You are a friend of Colleen, who is part of our science team, so a friend of hers is a friend of mine. This is going to be another epic episode of Midnight Lycanthropy on StarFox Radio. Well, yes. I'm sorry, even I sometimes need to feed and replenish weakness that comes with long slumbers. Without further ado, it is time for Dirty Birdie and myself to take a walk into the darkness. My creatures of the night, yes, welcome back once again to another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on Star Fox Radio. We have a new host slash guest that has been added to the entourage, and he will be popping in bi-weekly. And guess what? He is friends with Colleen, yes, part of our science team. So he does know what is occurring out and around in the forest. Dirty Birdie Kelly, how we doing, my friend?
We are hanging in there. It's Saturday, mowed the lawn, and just chilling out now with you. So, gonna be a good show.
Good stuff, my friend. Staying busy, just as I am always staying busy. So yeah, of course, it's got to keep grinding away. What have you been up to?
Oh man. Um. Well, research mostly. I've got two podcasts out. We've got the Nightmare Road, and we have the Disinformation Station that we're working on. I mean, that's fired up. That's going. Um, got episodes out on Patreon right now, and we try to come up with new stuff every week. What have you been up to?
It's beautiful stuff right there, my friend. And as stated earlier, I'll definitely try to help you out as much as possible and get you cranking out content. Make sure you toss me all the links that you do want put up in all our video descriptions, and we will make sure to get the audience to pop over and see what y'all have been plugging away on. And I have just been grinding and grinding, my friend, trying to get Star Fox Radio and Midnight Lycanthropy monetized. I have been adding to our science team. I have been working on my book, and also been getting ready to link up here in a few weeks with Doug Hijack from Monster Quest, and we're going to be trying to reboot that here within the next month or so, which is good. And then I've been working on a Germantown, Ohio documentary with Jody Cook and the North American Dogman Project. And final note, I have actually some really cool music that was made for me, and I have a really interesting and intriguing idea in my brain because I used to act and always been super creative. I need to get my little brother to pop over, and I want to make a cool little live werewolf video, more or less, with live footage and stuff. And I have a lot of cool ideas. So that's pretty much been it, man.
Wow, you are way busier than I am right now. We're trying to pick up and do more content, get more out there, do some more investigations. We're headed down to Utah next month. Ooh, in a couple weeks actually for Phenomicon. I'm going to try to shoot some video, try to figure out how to go live and film some of it. And I think we might sneak off and go do our own thing. I know Colleen wants to pop up north of there and check out the mountains that are just north of Vernal. So lots of missing persons cases out there. Lots of weird. So should be a good time, hopefully.
Sounds super interesting for sure, and y'all have to keep me updated on how that unfolds. And I don't need to preach this to any of y'all because you've been doing this for quite a while, but do make sure to stay safe out there because I would prefer not to be covering a missing persons case in Dogman territory involving Colleen and Dirty Birdie here.
Oh no. One thing I've learned over the years of listening to all the Sasquatch, all the Dogman, all the feral people, all the weird that goes on in the woods. Nah, man, you go strapped or get clapped. One of the two.
This is
So
good. Yes. Definitely want to make sure that you got your squad with you for sure. And so when it comes to the Dogman, what do you really feel about the topic? Or I guess where do you stand? Because I know you tend to venture into a bunch of different paranormal based stuff and all kinds of cryptids, whereas I try to really just grasp my brain around the Dogman topic.
yeah, Dogman topic that how long has that been out? Like what, 5 years, something like that? I haven't heard about it until geez, maybe 6, 7 years ago, and I'm like, what? There's Wolfman running around in the woods terrorizing people, and again, I thought that was just a Appalachian thing, and then it started moving to Ohio, and the further I dug into it, heck, we've got sightings out my way, and I'm like, oh, there might be something to this. Like it, I don't know. Maybe it's a fluke of what's evolution or something like that. Like I don't know. I mean, I'm 80% sure that Bigfoot exists, but then again, if Bigfoot does exist, I don't see why a Wolfman type creature couldn't exist too as well. I find it super interesting. So I started digging into it, and sure enough, I found an interesting story out of Idaho Falls. If you want to hear that one, if I can remember it off the top of my head.
Yeah, before you dive into that, to actually answer your question real quick, it really all depends on how, I guess, the individual you're speaking to and what they really consider dogman. Personally, I consider the cynocephaly part of the dogman, and that actually was first reported in 290 BC. And also, you have Anubis, which falls into the classification. And again, that's quite a long time ago, Egyptian times. And you have all the indigenous cultures across the world and the United States, speaking of these wolf like creatures. And then you have one of the more modern day times with settlers in 1887. So, I mean, this has been going on for pretty much ever since humans have been documenting scriptures.
Yeah, I found it, yeah, really interesting that this goes way back, way back. If they do exist, then we have records of them actually existing. I mean, was that you mentioned, was it the Greek or the Romans that had interactions with these?
Both.
Both. Yeah. Okay. So
So did the Indians as well, not the Native American indigenous cultures. The actual country of India used to refer to them by a different name, but same thing, described as living up deep within the mountains. And when Jody Cook was over in Iraq in 2001, I believe, give or take, Jody Cook is one of my best friends and actually the founder of the North American Dogman Project. Personally, when it comes to Dogman, rest in peace, Linda Godfrey
Oh
and
yeah.
Jody. Those are the two goats right there, personally, for me. And when Jody was over there, he was talking to some of the merchants who would explain how some of these creatures at points in time in the past, but they hadn't seen them in a while, would come down from the mountains and trade with them. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. So, okay. Um, the story out of Idaho Falls, I'll have to try to find it. I couldn't find it online, so I'm pretty sure I found it at my local library.
Beautiful.
Um, yeah, if I can't find it online, I go pop over to the local library and they've got a lot of stuff on the paranormal. And one of the stories I came across was um, a werewolf that was terrorizing Idaho Falls back in the what 1880s, before Idaho Falls, Idaho was a city. It was kind of a settlement type of deal, and people would be found um, completely ripped to shreds. I think they were kind of like on the outskirts of town, but something was just ripping people to shreds. They found like 5 people just completely ripped to shreds on the outskirts of town, and they couldn't figure out what it was. There wasn't a bear, and it wasn't a person, but they knew it was an animal. So they got a posse together and they waited it out for this thing. I guess they knew when it was going to attack next, something like that. But they got a posse together. They kept watch over the town. They found this creature and chased it to Rose Hill Cemetery in Idaho Falls, which is still there. They cornered it, they shot it, and they cut it in half and buried it in separate graves. And they put one tombstone that said Wolf, WOLFF, and in the other on the other grave they put Man, MANN, and they buried them and they left. They kept watch on the graves. I don't know why, but apparently I think 3 days later there was a nasty thunderstorm and somebody reported that lightning struck the graves. Totally bizarre. So the next day, somebody went out there to check the graves, and both the graves were open, like something dug its way out. And on one of the tombstones, I think it was the wolf tombstone, it looked like something took a giant bite out of the top of the tombstone. And that's the story of that. Now, in the 1980s, and I found this online, a lady was with her friends in Rose Hill Cemetery, and this is 1987. She was 16, and she was with her 2 friends, and they went to go look for the knocking grave. This is another thing, and her 2 friends were hanging out in the car doing their thing, and she's like, well, I'm going to go do my thing. And I guess the story goes is that she's walking down one of the paved roads, and she gets a little further away from the car, lights up a cigarette, and she's walking down the road, and she gets near this werewolf grave that's out there. As she's walking by, she sees something out of the corner of her eye bent over and eating something. She thinks it was a deer, and she can hear it ripping at the at the carcass and eating the meat, hearing the jaws crush the bone. She can actually hear this thing just just crunch, crunch, munch, munch. And she's taking a drag off her cigarette and she's looking at it and she's like, "What in the hell is this thing?" And it stops what it's doing, looks at her and stands up, and she's like, oh no. And she can make out silhouette of your typical werewolf. And she looks at it and she's like, oh no. Flicks her cigarette, runs back to her car, is pound, and she can hear this thing coming after her too, and starts like walking towards her. She's like, nope. And starts running, fast walking slash, I don't know, run. It's back to the car. Her two friends are in there. She starts banging on the hood of the car. Let me in, let me in, let me in. They're like, what's going on? She's like, just let me in and just drive. And they go tearing out of there. So that place is about an hour away from me. So I found that really super interesting that they have an incident 100 years ago, well, in 1880, and then 100 years afterwards, there's another incident. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I found it super interesting. I need to get my crew together and go check that out.
Wow, that is straight up bizarre, and I've actually never even heard that encounter. So this is great. Thanks for sharing that. And I mean, all the time I hear Dogman things that I haven't heard before, so it's not like that's not a normal thing, but that is totally intriguing for sure. And whereas that's pretty close to where you're at, that's definitely nightmare fuel, and it would be pretty cool to see if you can get down there and pop around and get a feel of the area. And I don't even know how to process something like that. That's what I'm saying, because I do know, I'm a firm believer, so is our science team, that people are seeing short-faced cave bears still. People are seeing baboons. People are seeing cave hyenas, spotted hyenas, the Dinopithecus, which is the enormous baboon that, same thing, went extinct around 11,000, 12,000 years ago, in theory, just like all the other animals I named, but they all really enjoyed cave systems and such. So I do believe people are seeing those. I believe people are hoaxing. I believe people are just misidentifying things. I do believe some people are sadly mentally ill and maybe having schizophrenic breaks or something and thinking they're seeing things. But once you push all that out of the way, then you still have these bizarre cases, like you just said. And numerous times there are cases where there's just more than one person there that witnessed this as well. So that's what really makes me pause for a second and realize, hey, okay, so all the pieces aren't really fitting in properly with the scientific aspects in every realm here. There's still some things that are sticking out like a sore thumb. And I mean, I spoke about it before, and I'll just say it here. 11 lumberjacks, 1887, see this thing that looks like a quadrupedal, bipedal, strange jet black like wolf creature that stands up and screams at them when they wouldn't leave it alone. Again, we're talking about 1887, right? 11 loggers that traveled a very far away to find work, because it wasn't easy for them to find work at this point in time, and then they just packed up and left. So you get these encounters like that where that's not a dire wolf that they saw or a hyena. So what exactly is it, you know?
Yeah. To your point of people seeing these things, sometimes even certain medications will quote unquote trigger other things in your brain because it's chemicals working with other chemicals. So they could be seeing something that's not there, but then again, it might be.
Yeah, you're
Okay.
seeing these pretty much all across the country at points in time. And I know the North American Dogman Project, we break it down into three categories where we try to have people that, specialize in each category: the paranormal, the extraterrestrial, and the physical. And again, we always stress potential with everything, okay? Whether it's
Yeah.
images or audio or anything, potential, because that really is what it is, potential, until we are able to fully clarify what exactly it is. But I mean, these are occurring everywhere. And like I said, you're going to definitely get some instances where people are having all those issues I spoke about. And I mean, I've used this example before and I will. We all dream, okay? Right? I mean, sometimes people remember their dreams more than others, but you know how many times I've had dreams where exes of mine in the past, women that I spent time with that were super awesome, whatever, either way. So I would be in a dream, right? And it seems like the beach is so real. You can smell the beach. You can see her hair, your hair, like in the wind, and you just remember the moment, right? But then you wake up, okay? And I realize I'm in my room, not near a beach, okay? I'm by myself. I have not spoken to this woman in literally years, okay? And nothing's here. It's just me. Okay. So it makes me wonder sometimes, potentially, yeah, if someone could maybe be having a nightmare or night terrors where they think they are seeing this and they wake up and you're still kind of in a haze, but it was just a dream. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that people and myself as a journalist and researchers just really need to understand that those things do occur and also study the process from that atmosphere as well.
So like a momentary lapse of reason, just you're doing your thing, and everything's normal, but maybe like your brain is just like, hey, let's give it a dose of this, and then that happens, but it's not really there. I don't know.
So that's the thing with humans, and we're smart, right? Or so we think. We think we're smarter than everything else, but it's all relative to the situation. But our minds try to piece together so much that we don't understand. And I've stressed this before. If animals were able to speak, where we could understand them, correct? Okay. And we would put ourselves and animals in a situation afterwards, if you were able to interview us or the animals, you know what's ironic and actually hilarious? The animals' recollection of the situation would actually be much better than the humans because they're not trying to just piece this all together. And humans are programmed to see faces and things in bushes and such because there was a point in time where predators, faces of maybe rival tribes or huge beasts are trying to come and get you. So we just, yes, force feed our mind all this stuff to try to process things. Okay. I mean, sometimes you hear a noise, right? Okay. What was that? Our mind starts running through all this stuff. When in actuality, you know what it probably just was? The wind blew off a branch that was already loose or an acorn and it hit the roof. Boom. You know what I mean? But yet, for some reason, we have to think of all these other totally bizarre reasons why that occurred. Oh, something had to have been in the tree right now over my house and slammed that down. Which, sure, I guess that could have happened, but also, as stated, it couldn't possibly have happened as well.
Right. So have you ever heard the term trust your gut?
Yes.
Okay. Now, my theory is one of my theories is that our bacteria that lives in our gut is millions of years old, right? So they are living creatures. I don't know if they have their own thought process or what, but their whole job is to keep you alive because they want to live too. So when people are out in the field, or they go to a graveyard, or some house that they walk into and something just tells them, no, don't, stop, turn around, leave. I think that might be the bacteria going, we're about to send chemicals to him to tell him to turn, or chemicals to whoever to tell them to turn around and leave.
Very interesting bit there for sure. And never really looked at it like that. And I definitely know that survival would be something that would be a reasoning to be aware. And I try to stress that. So, you know, some people are heavier sleepers than others. Well, if we were in more prehistoric times, the heavier sleepers probably cease to exist, okay? Because once you hear banging or something, you wake up. Well, you should, okay, because there could be a huge short-faced cave bear coming into your tribe, or again, a rival gang of hominoids that want to come and take what it is that you have, okay? Yes, so those are reasonings to wake up, and also reasonings to, like I said, be on edge. But now, when we fast forward to things in the 2024 time frame, we have all this stimuli, right? Meaning we watch Dogman stuff, and I've used this example numerous times, but when I'm up late studying and researching, right? Go out to the kitchen after. It's like 3:40 in the morning, okay? Street lights outside, still darkish, and you see a shadow go by. Well, I live in an area where they cut out a little community in the middle of the forest, okay? So we have a ton of wildlife here. I have a pet squirrel that I adopted. I have a little neighborhood chipmunk that's like a little pet that I built in my house out back. We have foxes here, woodpeckers, all kinds of cool things. But either way, I'm like, what the heck was that shadow? Mind immediately goes, oh, wow, was that a dog man? Keep in mind, though, I've never seen anything paranormal. I've never experienced anything like that. I'm just using the example of how my mind, because for 10 hours, I was just reading all these reports. I was watching stuff. I was editing my content, my podcast. So I'm doing dogman things. So I've installed this fear kind of, or this feeling into myself already. So I'm like, what the heck? And then I look out through the window closely, and guess what? I see a deer, another deer follow this deer, and then another one. Yeah, sure, deer are pretty decent size, and I looked at the shadow as big. But you see what I'm saying? Moral of the story is, why did my mind immediately go to the fact, what the heck was that, a dog man? Because I had worked myself up all night doing that. But
Yeah,
that's not really what I thought it was after I paid attention for a second. I didn't even necessarily think that was it at first. It was just the first thing my mind said.
yeah, because you've already self-programmed your brain to accept danger when there is no danger. So when you read media, you watch YouTube, you or videos on a certain subject, especially in the paranormal, and you're like, well, you know what? I need to drink water. And you go out to the kitchen and you look out the window and you see something flicker by, and you're like, oh, it could be that thing. And again, you've already pre-programmed your mind to jump at anything that is out of the normal. So when your eyes see something out of the normal, it's kind of an acceptance, and then again goes back to the gut, right? You fed yourself danger, so then again, then you see danger, and your stomach goes, "Oh no," and sends out the chemicals of fight or flight, right?
Yes.
So again, trust your gut, but then again, you're like, "Oh, something just passed, shadow just passed by my window. What the heck was it?" And then you see a deer, and you're like, "Oh, okay."
Exactly. No raging dog, man. No skinwalker. No Wendigo. It's just a deer. But yeah, exactly, 100%, because it's just the way, like you said, we program our minds sometimes. And I mean, even something more simplistic, not even in the cryptid realm. I could have sent you a text and we chat back and forth, and all of a sudden I could think, hey, wait a second, that's Birdie's car right there. Hey, man, what the heck? And then that's Birdie, and you wave, and then you're like, wait a second. When the person looks at you, like, dude, who the heck are you? And you're just like, hey, that wasn't dirty. Hey, man. Just because, like you said, we end up convincing ourselves to an extent. So that's why I always just really tell everybody just to step back and really try to process something before jumping to conclusions. It was like when I was younger, like my late mom would always say, before you want to speak, think about it for a couple of seconds. That's when she'd be ticked off at me. But no, in a process of not even being ticked off, it's just, yes, before that first gut where you're like, oh, wow. Yes, no, you just got to calm down for a second and try to think about it. And a lot of people don't realize, before we let you get back to what you're doing here, my friend, is that when it comes to fight and flight, okay, people don't seem to realize that all these massive predators of the past, we weren't the reason that they went extinct, meaning that we battled with them. Okay, we were responsible potentially in regards of taking their food sources, but you got to think that if a giant short-faced cave bear, right, or a pack of cave hyenas or dire wolves are around us, we are not going to go out of our way to go confront them, okay? Maybe if they came into your village at night and were taking some people, you might go deal with it, or you might move away from that area. Because just think for a second, what, a 13, 14-foot cave bear that spends 90% of its time in the caves. Are you going in first, man, to see if it's in there? I'm not. I'm not sitting here with my little spike and going in there first. Who's going in first? I mean, how many of us would it actually take to even take on one of those? I mean, we're not talking about points in time where we had more modern day weapons. I'm talking about what we had to deal and use at this point in time. Realistically, how many people would it take to take on something like that? That doesn't seem like a good survival technique, does it? You know, it seems like more or less you would avoid them. And sure, if there was a confrontation, get away, scare it away, or move your tribe to another area, correct?
Yeah, I think that's where the term of draw straws comes in. Like you've got 5 people and you've got a cave that you think a short-faced bear lives in. So everybody's like, I ain't going in there. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to draw straws. And somebody draws the shortest straw and they have to go in there by themselves. I just, did you get those pictures I sent you of the Natural History Museum?
Yes, I did. Those are great, man.
Okay, yeah. I got a picture in there of a short-faced bear. Now, for people talking about this years and years ago about how terrifying these things were, had no idea of how big these things are, and it was just the bones. Now, I couldn't imagine a live one. It would be terrifying because you got. I've seen a grizzly bear in a zoo. That's terrifying enough if it's in the wild. Now, I want you to picture doubling the size of a grizzly bear. That's how big these things are. And people would take these things on to the, I don't know, to the detriment of the tribe, like, or whatever. I mean, yeah, you got like one of these things come in and they snatch 1 or 2 of the villagers, and then they have a meeting and they're like, hey, we got to take care of this thing. Wait, I would guess even the bravest of warriors would probably be like, no, absolutely not.
That's just what I'm saying.
Or they send out a group, and then a group of 5 people and 2 make it back, and they're like, no, we got to go. So, yeah, yeah. To your point, yeah, that's probably what happens a lot.
And like
But
you said too, with the size of the cave bear, all that really is a much better version of a grizzly bear. Okay, it's faster, it's stronger, and yes, keep in mind also, like scientists say, because I'm a super nerd and a geeker, because I always love to learn and speak to people that are super smart. And anything that we see in museums, keep in mind what you saw, how big that was. That's not even the biggest one that ever existed either, you know?
yeah, I'm pretty sure there's probably subspecies all over the world. And are you familiar with Godwin's law?
I am not, if you want to touch base on that before we let you
Um,
go.
Godwin's law is the theory that the bigger the animal, or the thinner the air, the bigger the animal has to be to get oxygen into its blood for it to work right, to live. So that picture of that short-faced bear that I got out of the Natural History Museum, imagine that more hundreds of years ago in Alaska. It was probably a towering beast that would just rip rip and tear 8 people apart before they even knew what was hitting them.
Yes, that's what I'm saying, my friend. I mean, especially for prehistoric, man and women to try to be battling with that thing, it just doesn't make logical sense for, survival. I mean, I don't even think 5 people. I mean, I would think that would have to be a good solid like 10, 15 people, a couple distracting, a couple being able to go in and get like mortal hits on the thing. There has to be a lot to go into play with that too, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you could have 8 people, like 4 distracting it and 4 trying to get it, and he's going to take it. That thing is going to take out at least 4 people before it falls. So terrifying. Oh, and then you got that picture of that giant bison that I sent you.
Yes.
I kind of guesstimated, and when I took the photo of it, that wasn't even on the floor, and I'm 6 foot tall. So the shoulder of this giant bison had to be at least 7 feet at the shoulders,
That's
and
crazy.
and a 7 foot horn span. And people used to hunt these things.
Wow.
Prehistoric times were terrifying. Yeah, I couldn't imagine waking up and like, hey, what are we having for dinner? Somebody's like bison. I'm like, no.
I know, that's so funny. Prehistoric times would be terrifying, but well, thanks for popping on tonight, my friend. And great conversation, especially for our first episode that we will be putting out. And I do look forward to getting you on bi-weekly. It's great stuff, and keep on coming up with cool stuff, because I mean, if you would like me to come up with plots to talk about, I have no problem doing that. But also, it was great how you did your own legwork right there, because you actually were able to educate me on some stuff, man. So I do encourage you to, you're not just a guest, you're a host, man. So you can definitely come up with stuff that's Dogman oriented to talk about. So it's always great, man. I look forward to continuing.
Yeah, yeah. Think next time I'm on, I have a theory about these Dogman sightings from around my states and how close they are to Native American reservations. Just, I don't know, it's a theory, but I find it fascinating. It's not too, some of these sightings are not too far away from reservations.
Thank you for everyone who once again stopped by tonight for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on Starfox Radio. Please like, subscribe, and share my content. Feed the algorithm, and I will see you very soon. But make sure to keep your head on a swivel and beware of the Dogman.